I love horror movies. I've talked about it many times on this channel, and I'll keep saying it. Horror just does something to me. It just takes over my body, and it just, like, is a whole new experience every time I watch. A lot of horror movies are junk, but we are in this sort of renaissance for quality horror films, and I couldn't be happier. There seems to be one studio that's pushing the boundaries, that's allowing filmmakers to make the stories that they want to make, that are real stories. Story is one of the most important aspects of a horror movie. To me, horror can be broken down into a few things. And I'm not, and this is not like a thesis, you know, I'm not sitting here and actually making a video on what I think makes a solid horror film, which I might do. But to me, horror can be broken down into a few things. Number one, it has to tell a compelling story. I have to care about the characters, or else I'm not gonna care. The horror is not gonna be real. To me, a good horror movie is not just horrific events. To me, a good horror movie is not just, well, something weird or scary is on the screen. To me, a horror movie is actually being invested in what's happening on the screen and feeling as though I don't want that to happen to those characters. And I especially would not want that to happen to me. Another thing that makes a really good horror movie is sound. I've said this many times, but sound is so incredibly important in a horror film. Sound can make or break any scene, whether it's music or sound design or sound editing. Sound is so incredibly important to crafting the perfect scene. And atmosphere. When atmosphere for a horror film is so perfectly handled, it creates a sense of dread. It creates a sense of loneliness that engulfs the viewer. It makes you live in that world, and that's where the true horror of the films come out. All that being said, I think there's one studio right now that truly grasps all of those aspects and then gives it to filmmakers that want to create solid films, not just cash grabs. And that's A24. I've talked about my love of A24 previously, and at this point in time, A24 is not this niche indie studio. They're playing hardball and they're winning. They have a Best Picture winner in Moonlight under their belt. They are a real deal studio. People need to start paying attention that solidly crafting films is what is important, not just pumping out films. It's quality over quantity at A24, and I love them. They also have a kick-ass podcast, just a quick side note. But anyway, last year, A24 produced my favorite movie of the year, which just so happened to be a horror film, In It Comes at Night. I've done a whole review on It Comes at Night. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it, but I didn't think that they could repeat the year after with such a solid horror film. But holy cow, they did. Today, we're talking about Hereditary.
Come on, Peter. Here's your suit.
It's heartening to see so many strange new faces here today. I know my mom would be very touched and probably a little suspicious. My mother was a very secretive and private woman. It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby, she wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you. She was a very difficult woman, which maybe explains me.
I recognize you from your mother.
What?
Sometimes I swear I can feel them in the room.
Oh my God! What's that?
Hereditary is directed by Ari Aster, and it stars Toni Collette, Millie Shapiro, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Wolff, and Ann Dowd. And I'm going to start this review talking about Ari Aster. This is Ari Aster's feature film debut. And I'm not going to make a statement like this is the best feature film debut ever, because I'd have to actually look down and see if by feature debuts by directors, but this is definitely up there. Holy cow. This film is so brilliantly directed. Everything about this film is Ari Aster's. By the way, he also wrote the film. But everything about this film is crafted. I'm not a woodworker, so this is going to feel like a weird metaphor, but this is like a perfectly made chair. Every aspect of it is beautifully designed and crafted, to the point where it actually feels effortless how well this is made. You're watching a scene and you're not realizing how beautifully set everything is to create this tension, to create this air of ease is so difficult. If that makes any sense at all. The movie feels so natural to live in. It feels so natural to be a part of. It's so odd that it feels natural. And because it feels so natural, it is definitely so well crafted. I hope that made sense. Ari Aster has done something so incredibly interesting with this film. Hereditary is basically a family drama set around the life of a character played by Toni Collette, who's the mother, the father, Gabriel Byrne, the daughter, Millie Shapiro, and her older brother, Alex Wolff. This family drama is the crux of the story. It is what Hereditary is about, hence the title. And what Ari Aster does so brilliantly is the way that he frames the story. So Toni Collette's hobby and eventual career is she makes miniatures. Miniatures have an interesting place in my heart. I used to work at an assisted living home, and one of my residents was a miniature creator in her life previously, and she would always show us pictures of these miniatures, and it looks so interesting and intricate and incredible how somebody could craft something so tiny and how you could tell an interesting story through that. And Ari Aster takes that miniature, that storytelling angle, and he frames the entire film around it. It is a framing device, but it also is so brilliantly, literally framed inside of the film that as a framing for shots, you're honestly unsure if you're watching, at times, honestly unsure if you're watching a miniature or the real thing. And Toni Collette, and the way Toni Collette's character tells her emotions, her thoughts, her comprehension of the story as it's going on through those miniatures is so incredibly interesting. And Ari Aster knows brilliantly how to direct all of this. Some of the most incredible tension in this film is not necessarily from one of the horrific events in the film. And there are horrific events in the film. There is a dinner scene towards the end of this film that is so brilliantly directed and so well acted that creates a majority of the tension that I felt throughout the movie. So it creates a majority of the tension that I felt. Like, there is that specific dinner scene, I was blown away by just how into the lives of these characters I was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Ari Aster knows how to direct horror, and that's blatantly obvious, and I cannot wait for Ari's next film. I need it. It's been a long time since I've been this excited about a feature film debut, and honestly cannot wait for this person's next career choice, their next move, the story that they next tell. I trust Ari as a storyteller because this story is so brilliantly told. Moving on, though, I have to talk about the performances. Toni Collette is mind-blowing. It's very early in the year, but I would definitely say Toni Collette at least deserves a nomination. I don't think she'll get one. A24 has proven that they will market to the Oscar voters, so hell, if they want to showcase Toni Collette's performance, she has all the chops. Gabriel Byrne is really good in the movie as well. He has sort of a subdued role, and if I have a couple criticisms with the movie, I feel like his role could have been explored a little more, but at the same time, maybe not, because I do love how brilliantly he is set up in the film to be the exact opposite of almost every other member of the family. And he puts on quite a subdued performance, but it's really a wonderful one. Towards the end of the movie, where you really start seeing him come out of the shell that he's sort of created, you can see how great his performance is. Millie Shapiro is wonderful in this movie. I believe this is her first film. I believe it says introducing Millie Shapiro. And Millie Shapiro is great. She brings this air of this air of uneasiness. She's brilliant actor at being able to just showcase the horror. When she's on screen, she's very magnetic, and every little action she does just captivates you as a viewer. And I was very, very impressed by Millie Shapiro in the film. And Alex Wolff is my lowest point from performance standpoint, but he's also excellent in the movie. This is the best I've seen Alex Wolff do. I think Alex Wolff has the ability to be a really great actor, and he might be the lowest denominator in this film, but he's still quite good. He can frickin' bring it. When this homeboy is scared, he is scared. And there is some scary stuff in this film. There's one scene in particular where his crying kind of sounded a little weird, but at the same time, it never took me out. I liked Alex Wolff in this movie, and a lot of people are kind of shitting on him online, saying specifically his crying scenes were bad. And I understand what they're saying, but I give people a pass. Crying is a weird emotion, and there are some ugly criers out there in real life. So acting in a crying way is a weird point for me. I'll allow some things to pass, and crying is usually one of those things, and I'm like, maybe he literally cries like that. We don't really know. But that scene in particular is a little weak, but I think he carries a lot of this movie really well. And Ann Dowd is really good in this movie as well. Her scene, one scene in the middle of the movie with Ann Dowd is one of my least favorite scenes in the movie. I have a couple things wrong with this movie, and this one middle scene with Ann Dowd to me is very exposition heavy, and it sort of drug there. The movie sort of drug there for me, and it's not her fault. She's good in the movie, but that one particular scene just didn't work for me on a couple levels, and I guess I'm going to throw some blame at her, even though it's really not her fault. It's the way that scene was written. She's good in the movie, just like she's good in everything she's in, and she's in 8 million things this year. This is a family drama in which I actually want to know what's happening to every member of this family. And it's that story that's carried all the way throughout the film that makes every horrifying action so satisfying. This film is a lot deeper than I think people also are going to give it credit for. It's honestly up for debate that any of the events that occurred actually occurred, except for one specific event. But I cannot leave a review of this movie without talking very specifically about one set piece in this movie involving Millie Shapiro and Alex Wolff and a vehicle. I'm not going to say anything else. I don't want to spoil this, because this is honestly, and I don't say this, I don't say this with any sort of hyperbole. I say this 100% seriously. I've never been more shocked by a scene in a film than that scene in the desert. Than that scene. And Ari Aster so beautifully directs that scene. Alex Wolff is simply staring forward. And his staring forward creates some of the most incredible tension I've ever felt. His constant stare. You know, a part of him wants to look, but most of him doesn't want to look. And Alex Wolff beautifully conveys shock. If anyone tells me that his crying in the movie outweighs his performance in that scene, they don't know what they're talking about. That really affected me. That movie, this movie would be a good movie based off of that scene, but the fact that the rest of this movie plays out the way it does makes it a great movie. Now I'm talking about what I don't like about the movie. There's a few things. 2 things really in particular. That movie, that scene I talked about previously with Ann Dowd, that I think just drug a little bit. I didn't dislike the content of that scene. I just think it sort of slowed the film down, because it was moving at a really good pace. It was moving at a pace I really respected. It wasn't slow. I would never categorize the movie as slow, but it took its time. And it had things to say the whole way. But that scene in particular, I just felt sort of drugged, especially after the movie, when I was like, oh, that part was a little weird in there. It just sort of slowed it down. And the ending. I didn't love the ending. I like the ending, but I don't like... There's a bit of exposition at the ending that I think Ari Aster didn't need to add. I think he could have trusted the audience a little more or left it a little more open. And I'm not 100% sure that that was Ari or the studio. It Comes at Night is a movie that I love, but it got an F on CinemaScore. Audiences did not seem to like that movie. And I think maybe, and I don't know, this is just speculation, and I trust A24 so much that I would say it probably isn't, but maybe they were told, can you just make it a little more obvious? We don't want another F score here. It's possible. I'm not saying that's definitely what happened, but it's possible. I don't love that right part, that part right at the ending. And that's honestly, those two things are keeping it from being a pretty perfect movie in my eyes. It so brilliantly handles the family drama with the horror aspects of the film, and it has some of the most horrifying moments I've ever experienced. This movie is up there for me with some of my favorite horror movies of the past decade. It's up there to me with The Babadook and It Follows and It Comes at Night and now Hereditary. I love The Conjuring, but The Conjuring's a little bit below these movies in my opinion, and I loved Hereditary and everything that it was. I'm going to be giving A24 and Ari Aster's Hereditary a 9.5 out of 10. If you have the ability to see this movie, it's opened wide, go and see it. Do yourself a favor, but please allot the rest of the day because it is a drain mentally and physically. This movie will affect you. I hope it affects you. I hope, you know what? Honestly, maybe this movie just affected me, but I hope it affects you the way it affected me. I hope it grabs a hold of you and doesn't want to let go for quite some time, because this is a very powerful piece of cinema and it demands to be seen. But anyway, thank you again for watching. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Please hop down into our comment section and tell me what your favorite horror movie has been of the last couple of years, and let me know what you thought of Hereditary. If you don't want to talk about the movie in the comment section, please hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter is Mourar, or find us on RAZZLE's Twitter at RAZZLE Review and talk to us there. Let us know what you thought of everything, and thank you always for coming back here to our content. Please like and subscribe, and as always, have a great day.